Asking the right question. That's something I was reminded of as I've been working on Battleborn Bride. The importance of asking the right question in the right way to get the answer that I need. And something I knew very well while I was still working at the archives because I used that skill on a daily basis. I got a lot of strange questions, and I would try to think outside the box when I was coming up with how I could find the answer to that question. But as I'm working on Battleborn Bride, I'm still in the early stages and I need to make sure that my framework is correct because Battleborn Bride is a historical set in Carson City. It will have fictional characters, but the framework is real history. I want to make it as accurate as possible, especially as a retired archivist. I should know some of these things. The information, the basic information for the story came about while I was working at the archives. So I need to make sure that my memories of that information are accurate and correct. And I want to make sure that the book can be not only an enjoyable read, but hopefully a resource for anybody who might be interested in that point in history. Since I'm setting this as a young adult book, so probably I believe that would be 12 to 18 years of age. I'm looking at specifically kids who might be studying Nevada history or who might be interested in Nevada history. But I'm also hoping it will appeal to adults who may also be curious about that period in time. So, with all that in mind, I was looking at the setup of Carson City in 1863, and my memory was that Abraham Curry, one of the founding fathers of Carson City, came to the area in the 1850s. He tried to initially settle in Genoa to the south of us, which I know other people in other parts of the world would pronounce it Genoa, but in Nevada it is pronounced Genoa. So he tried to settle in Genoa, but ended up in Carson City, or what then would have been around the Eagle Station area, because it wasn't yet Carson City. Now, I knew that Abraham Curry had provided a location for the territorial legislature to meet, and my recollection was that the location was the Warm Springs Hotel. Now, this is where things get interesting. Since the territorial legislature met at the Warm Springs Hotel for a period of time, I was thinking that the constitutional conventions would have been held there as well. And as I was doing a little research just to verify my memory, I found that I was wrong because, and this is very interesting because as I wrote book 2 of Restless Spirits, so the book that will come after Passion Restored, that is going into editing tomorrow, I mentioned that the Nevada State Prison was created in 1862. Now, the Nevada State Prison is the site of the former Warm Springs Hotel that was owned by Abraham Curry, because Curry was a smart man. He knew how to earn money from what he'd created here, because there was a lot of interesting shenanigans going on at that period of time as to land owning and things like that. So he owned the Warm Springs Hotel and offered it to the territorial legislature as a meeting place because there weren't really a lot of options at the time. Now, Warm Springs, what is now the now closed Nevada State Prison, is on 5th Street to the east of downtown Carson City. It is currently within the Carson City limits. However, in 1862, that would have been outside of, it wasn't really even a town yet, but it would have been outside Carson City. And it would have been outside by several miles, so it would have been hard to get to. And if the site was also being used as a prison starting in 1862, I realized that could not have been the location of the Constitutional Convention for a couple of reasons. Because it was several miles away from the center of the population, and they were incarcerating people out there. So they probably didn't want to have the Constitutional Convention next to what was then a working prison. And I had to dig into my research skills, and I kept asking, where was the Nevada Constitutional Convention held in 1863? The question then brought up the answer, Carson City. I'm like, well, okay, I know it's in Carson City. I want to know where in Carson City, that what location, because I still had it in my mind that Abraham Curry was somehow involved, but I'd ruled out that the Warm Springs Hotel was the location of the Constitutional Convention. So I was getting frustrated with myself, and I kept asking the same question and getting the same answer. Now, what I really needed to do was reframe my question. So I began asking, where in Carson City was the Nevada Constitutional Convention held in 1863? And that is what gave me the answer I needed. It was a property owned by Abraham Curry. It was actually called the Great Basin Hotel, and it was at the corner of Carson and Musser Street. So if anyone is familiar with Carson City, that is currently the location of, I believe it's one of the Attorney General office buildings. The current building was built by Frederick de Longchamps in the 20th century, in the very early part, I think the 1920s maybe. But prior to that building, it was the Ormsby County Courthouse. I think after de Longchamps built a new building, but prior to that, it was still the Ormsby County Courthouse. And it was that after it had been Abraham Curry's Great Basin Hotel. So it wasn't the Warm Springs Hotel to the east, it was the Great Basin Hotel, which would have been centrally located because they had already set aside the plaza area where they hoped to one day build the state capitol, which didn't happen until 1871. But we're talking about 1863, the Great Basin Hotel, an Abraham Curry property. Again, he's using his skills to earn some income from the things that he had laid claim to here in the area. He offered the Great Basin Hotel for the use of the Constitutional Convention. Now, I do want to verify that because the information I found should be accurate. It is a local who is someone who dives into Carson City history, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the state archives should have some primary source documents relating to the territorial period. Excuse me. That would actually prove, hopefully, that the Great Basin Hotel was the site of the Constitutional Convention. I was trying to look up newspaper articles from that time period. The Carson Daily Appeal, which I believe would have been the name of the paper at that time, it's currently the Nevada Appeal. They might talk about what was happening with the Constitutional Convention, but the articles that I found from other newspapers in the area didn't talk about the building where the convention was held. Now, why is this important at all? The importance of this is that, as I mentioned, I want this book to be as historically accurate as possible. Even though I have fictional characters moving through the story, I want the historic parts of the story to be as accurate as possible. And it's difficult to find some of the history for that period of time, which is one of the reasons I'm writing this book, because I feel that it will be a good resource not only for young adults, but for adults who want to know more about the founding of Nevada. So I'm going on the premise right now that the Great Basin Hotel at the corner of Carson and Musser, which is just across the street from where the state capitol is now located, would be the site of the Constitutional Convention in both 1863 and 1864, because the first round was not approved. They went back. The Civil War was raging back east, and there were I get so excited, my voice, my words don't come out clearly. Anyway, so things were going not great. We're coming up on a presidential election. Lincoln really wanted to resolve things related to the Civil War, and he needed votes. The silver came in handy because the Comstock lode was booming at the time, but I believe a lot of it was politically motivated. A lot of Union sympathizers were located in Nevada, and that was one of the reasons that Nevada was basically fast tracked to statehood in 1864, because it really didn't have enough population to be given statehood. We had been given a territorial status. We had become the territory of Nevada. Prior to that, we were part of Utah territory. So we were progressing towards statehood, but we weren't quite ready to be there yet. And there were times after statehood when there was some pushback saying that maybe Nevada shouldn't be a state, because people then started leaving. The population dropped when the Comstock lode played out, and Las Vegas wasn't really much of a thing yet until the early 20th century. So there was a period of time where a lot of people didn't think Nevada should be a state at all. And there was a lot of pushback, but a group of people had come from California, as I mentioned before, and I mentioned also that the Nevada state constitution is based heavily on the California state constitution. I did see comment somewhere that the California constitution is based on the New York state constitution. So I haven't verified that, but it is interesting to see the progression of the history as states are becoming part of the United States, or as territories are becoming part of the United States. So it is a very interesting time in history. It is part of the Civil War, even though the fighting was happening back east, over 1,000 miles away from us. And it is something that I think more people should know about. Nevada is very proud of statehood. We celebrate our Nevada Day, October 31st, every year. We have a big parade here in Carson City. It's a state holiday. We used to get October 31st off until the legislature decided to make it the last Friday of October, so that we could have a holiday weekend, and that way we could celebrate. And last year, I believe, we actually had the Nevada Day Parade on November 1st, which is a little weird because we were, well, I guess actually thinking about it, it's not weird because we did become a state in 1864 on October 31st, but really the first day we would have been able to celebrate that would have been November 1st. And I can do a history of Nevada Day celebrations maybe later on. It won't be related to this book because it has no bearing on the time period I'm discussing, but as you can tell, I get a little excited about history, and I want to make sure that the history I'm portraying is as accurate as I can make it. So for this point in time, as I'm drafting my book, the Great Basin Hotel across the street from what would later become the Capitol Plaza is going to be the location of the Constitutional Convention. Once the book goes into edits, I will go and make sure I can try to verify that somehow. Hopefully I will be able to find a primary source document at the state archives that will help me prove that. But in the meantime, I'm just going on that premise, and that way I know where specifically in town this will be happening, so that the characters, as they're going through this experience, will be able to say, well, here we were, and this is what was happening. And I will have the characters who were involved in the Constitutional Convention, such as J. Neely Johnson. I will be including them as well. Sam Clemens, who Mark Twain, will be playing a big part in the story. And not everything related to Mark Twain may be 100% accurate for a variety of reasons, because Mark Twain liked to use a lot of hyperbole in his writing. He would make things up, and one of the things he made up is actually going to become a pivotal point in the story later on. So I'm not going to give that away. You'll have to check out the book to find out how that plays a part in the story, but he will be part of the reason that one of the characters in the book has a very traumatic experience. So not intentionally on his part, but it will end up being what happens in the long run. Anyway, I was just reminded today of the importance of asking the right questions, and I just wanted to come on here and say that if you are planning to write anything historical, and you're having problems finding the information, take a moment, step back, and think about, well, how can I reframe my question? Because when you're doing primary source research, it's not like looking up a book in the library. You can't just go to the catalog and say, I know this person wrote this book on the subject and this is what I want to refer to. When you're looking at primary source documents from an archives, they're not always cataloged. And it is the job of archivists to help you track them down when even the archivists don't know where exactly they might be. So if I don't have easy access to a record from the Nevada State Archives, I can say, well, I know it happened in this particular period of time. It would have been related to this agency, because that's the way the records at the state archives are organized, basically by agency, because it is recording the history of Nevada state government. And then I will go through those documents. It will narrow down my search quite a bit. And hopefully I will be able to come across the document I'm looking for, because I think if the territorial government was paying for the use of the Great Basin Hotel, there should be documentation of that. And as um, you know, it could be related to Orion Clemens because he was the territorial secretary. I don't know if he would have been the person that that documentation would have gone through, or I need to refresh my memory on what agencies were in existence at the time. How would the territorial government have processed payment to someone who was providing them a service? So it's possible I could find a document with nice letterhead, which we always love finding those, because sometimes it was very ornate letterhead and it would give you not only a date and the items being purchased, but it may give you the location of the company or the business that was providing the service. And that way can really start pinning things down. So doing archival research can be challenging, but it can also be very rewarding. It's a lot of fun. And I just wanted to share my experience with doing that kind of research with you, especially the idea of asking the right question to find the information you're looking for. Because, like I said, I was asking too broad a question. I knew that the Constitutional Convention happened in Carson City. That wasn't my point. But it took me a while to remember that, hey, you know, I need to really narrow this question down to get the answer I'm looking for. So I wanted to share that with you, and I hope that it's helpful if you've decided that you wanted to do some historical research for any reason whatsoever, because it's just fun researching history. Also, genealogy. I'm a big fan of genealogical research, and I do like to help people with that. So I may start promoting myself more as a genealogist over time, but right now I want to focus more on writing, and Battleborn Bride is definitely my focus. So with my new information in hand, or the refresher on the information, because I feel like I may have already known this, but with the at least a good idea now of where the actual building location of the Constitutional Convention, I can sit down and start dealing with the story that's playing out. And I do hope, if you are following along on these videos, that you may check out Battleborn Bride when it's released, because, like I've said, my book should be coming out in October. I'm hoping to make it a Nevada Day book for this year. JT has stepped back from doing his sheriff in Nevada for October. He's having some problems with the story and decided to work on another project. So he doesn't think it's going to be ready in time for this year. And that means October is all mine. I was excited about the idea of the two of us sharing a release, but it will be fun for the two of us to focus on Battleborn Bride, because I really have high hopes for this book. I hope I can do it justice, and I hope it will become popular and something that people can refer to over a period of time, because not only do I hope that as much as possible, the history will be accurate, but The other thing about historical books is that they are not only a reflection of the time period that is being written about, they're also a reflection of the time that they were written in. So, authors, we have a particular voice. We come up with a particular idea and we address that idea with our own thoughts and our own, outlook on the world and things like that. And that becomes a part of the story, even though we aren't overtly making it part of the story. So, even over time, if some of the information is later found out to be not quite as accurate as I hoped, it will be a reflection of the information that was available at the time. And I've seen this in historic books that I've read where it's like, oh, I know for a fact that this idea, this thought in the book is incorrect based on information that was found later. So I think I'm getting overexcited, so I need to chill out. You can tell I really love history. And that's why I was absolutely thrilled to be able to work at the Nevada State Archives. I didn't know that was a job I could have as a kid. If I had, I probably would have gone to school to get a degree to become an archivist. But I think sometimes things just work out for the best. And I do feel like I learned a lot in my time there. I hope I helped the archives out as I did my job there. Spent many years doing things like Archives Month exhibits and just random exhibits about some of the very interesting information that we had available. So I do like to continue to promote the state archives, and I will be spending more time there. I haven't been in a while, but I am overdue a visit. And once I get the first draft of Battleborn Bride out of the way and get it off to betas, I have a couple of betas in mind in particular, aside from JT, because I want some very specific feedback about the book. But then I will probably go to the state archives just to make sure that as much as possible, I'm providing correct information on the history that I'm writing about. Well, I need to get this edited and posted because JT and I have a podcast interview today for the Nevada Author Network that will probably be posted next Wednesday. We will be doing our regular CC and JT Amateur Hour on Sunday, where we will, excuse me, be talking about some, we've had a few changes, I think, to some of our upcoming plans that we need to discuss. And like I mentioned, JT putting Sheriff in Nevada 4 aside for the moment. So it's, we're switching gears a little bit, but, adapt, improvise, overcome, and just move forward. So that's what we're doing. Anyway, I do need to get back to other things. I will be working more on Battleborn Bride this afternoon. I'm very excited to get back to the keyboard now that I have this new piece of information or refreshed piece of information in mind. And I'm hoping that I can do a fast draft of the book and get it to betas within the month because I want to make sure it gets through the editing process in time to be released in October. The official release date, I'm looking at October 31st, but I may be doing some early releases if I get copies in hand before that. If I can get maybe the book done by the end of September or, get copies by the end of September, I'm hoping to have a few events where I can really promote the heck out of Battleborn Bride because, like I said, I'm pretty excited about this one. And I do hope that readers will find it and will enjoy it and that they'll learn something because there is a lot of fascinating history to be learned about Carson City that isn't really widely available right now. So anyway, I'm off. I hope you have a wonderful day and week. Thank you for joining me. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.